Before you share that headline, take a breath. Lily from AT&T stops denying, finally confirms what we suspected all along is built to spike your pulse. But it only works if you don't look too closely. Lily is a character. The human being is Milana Vaintrub, actor, comedian, writer, producer, and there's no secret scandal she's hiding. What she has done is set boundaries, correct rumors, and explain choices fans noticed on screen. The real confirmation isn't a tabloid reveal. It's this: she's more than a 30-second smile in a blue polo. She helped shape how Lily is presented, and she expects the internet to treat her like a person, not a projection. If you've tracked the story, you already sensed pieces of this. During the pandemic era, some spots featured tighter framing or Lily standing behind a counter. People invented wild explanations. Vaintrub responded directly that sexualized comments had become relentless, that the constant objectification was invasive, and that she and the brand adjusted presentation to reduce the noise and protect her mental health. She has also talked about stepping behind the camera during remote shoots and collaborating more deeply on the character's voice. That is not denial flipping to confession, it is an artist asserting authorship and boundaries in the only way that lasts: by changing the work. What fans suspected all along is the part that actually deserves applause. Lily's wit, timing, and empathy come from a trained comic with real credits, not a mannequin. Vaintrub came up through improv and sketch, sharpened her instincts in digital shorts watched by millions, and learned to land jokes in the pocket while playing the straight man to chaos. That's why the ads feel like scenes, not slogans. And that's why when she says, "I'm a person, not a pinup," it scans as a creative note, not a plea. She is protecting the comedy, the character, and the person at the center of both. Here's the quick map of the human being behind the name badge. Milana Vaintrub was born in Uzbekistan and came to the United States as a child refugee. She grew up in Los Angeles, started acting young, and built range across comedy and drama. You may have seen her as Sloane Sandberg on This Is Us, heard her as the voice of Squirrel Girl in Marvel projects, or caught her lead turn in the horror comedy Werewolves Within. She writes, she produces, she directs. She is a founder of a refugee aid initiative and spends real capital time, voice, money, on causes that reflect the life she lived. When you know that, Lily's warmth reads less like branding and more like casting that finally met its match. The harassment chapter isn't gossip, it's her words. In live streams and interviews, she said the sexualized comments were constant and dehumanizing, that they followed her across platforms, and that it changed how she felt logging on. She asked people to stop. She thanked those who did. She emphasized that framing choices were deliberate, sometimes for story, sometimes for privacy, and that speculation about her body or personal life wasn't just wrong, it was exhausting. AT&T publicly backed her. She has also described how working from home during lockdown required new production roles, with her helping to craft and even direct certain pieces. The through line is control of frame, of tone, of what parts of a life stay offline. Her activism predates the rumor mill. In 2016, she co-launched a campaign to support refugees, leveraging a social audience to fund tangible help. She has spoken about the responsibility of visibility, about how comedy can carry heavy things without trivializing them, and about building rooms on set and online, where women don't have to choose between presence and safety. If you suspected she was using a commercial platform to buy independence for her own creative work, and to give her causes a louder mic, you were right. That's the real story. A performer turning a brand gig into a base camp about her private life, she shares on her terms. She has spoken publicly about becoming a mother, and occasionally posts glimpses, never more than she's ready to give. The boundary is the point. She confirms what affects the work and the way she's treated. She doesn't feed the gossip machine. So here's the promise. We'll skip the fake cliffhangers and map what she has actually confirmed, why Lily's framing changed, how authorship and boundaries protect the person behind a character, and how Vaintrub's career and activism make the ads feel bigger than a sell. If you came for a gotcha, stay for the better reveal. Lily was a role, Milana is the author, and truth beats rumor. When you let it speak clearly, let quotes get specific about what was really confirmed, because the answer is more interesting than gossip. Lily is the role. Milana Vaintrub is the author of how that role shows up. Starting in 2013, AT&T cast her as Lily Adams, the quick-witted retail pro who treats customers like co-conspirators. Spots were scripted, but she brought improv chops, shaping the cadence, the shrug, the sideways smirk that turns a line into a joke. The campaign landed, she became recurring, and a brand mascot turned into a character with a pulse. That authorship is the through line. Directors will tell you the best commercial actors aren't parrots. They're listeners who can ride a beat and invent a better button on take 3. Vaintrub's improv background, sketch, web series, rooms where jokes live or die in 10 seconds, let her shade Lily's empathy and snark without breaking the pitch. Audiences felt the difference. Instead of a sales prop, Lily became a person, a little dorky, a lot competent, nobody's fool. You can't fake that for years without help from the human steering the wheel. When the pandemic upended production, she didn't disappear. She adapted. Remote shoots meant smaller crews, living room sets, and new responsibilities. She has said she stepped behind the camera on some spots, co-writing beats, directing, troubleshooting tech, because the show had to go on safely. Framing changed too. Some ads kept Lily behind a counter, or used tighter shots. People invented lurid theories. The real reason was mundane and humane logistics, safety, and boundaries. When she explained that online, AT&T publicly backed her and moderated comment sections to cut the harassment noise. The harassment wasn't abstract. In a widely shared livestream, Vaintrub asked viewers to stop sexualizing her image and speculating about her body or personal life. She said the comments were relentless and exhausting, and that they followed her across platforms. The ask was simple: let the work be the work, and let the person have a life. That confirmation, if you need one, is the only kind that matters. She and the brand made creative choices to protect a human being without breaking the campaign's charm. What a lot of fans suspected all along is now obvious when you line up the receipts. The humor in those spots isn't an accident, it's the product of an actor-writer who understands timing. The warmth isn't corporate frosting, it's a performer drawing from real empathy. And the boundary isn't drama, it's design. Vaintrub helped tune Lily's voice, now and then directed the ads themselves, and treated the brand stage as a platform, not a cage, for the rest of her work. That's the opposite of scandal. It's authorship. Context deepens the picture. She arrived in the U.S. as a child refugee from Uzbekistan, grew up in Los Angeles, and started acting early. She cut her teeth in improv rooms and sketch groups, built a digital following with web shorts, and landed roles across TV and film. Sloan on This Is Us, voice work as Marvel's Squirrel Girl in animated projects, a lead turn in the horror comedy Werewolves Within. In 2016, after visiting Greek refugee camps, she co-founded a grassroots initiative to support displaced families. That's the résumé behind a 30-second smile. She has also been candid, on her terms, about becoming a parent. The choice to keep family mostly offline is a boundary, not a tease. And it informs how she frames Lily now, less about a body, more about a brain, timing, and a tone that feels welcoming instead of winking. When viewers asked why the framing changed, she answered with the only explanation that respects everyone in the room: because I asked for it. That is confirmation of agency, not of gossip. AT&T's public stance has matched that principle. The company stated its support, moderated or limited comments when needed, and allowed the creative team to adjust how Lily appears. That is what responsible brands do when a campaign's success intersects with a real person's well-being. It preserves the character and protects the actor. It also signals to the audience that we can enjoy the joke without turning the performer into an object lesson in how not to behave online. So if you were waiting for a reveal, here it is in language. Lily's evolution is the result of Milana Vaintrub asserting authorship and boundaries, and a brand listening. What fans suspected, that the woman in the polo is a multi-hyphenate shaping the work, was right. In the next section, we'll step outside the store and map the career that runs parallel to the ads, the improv routes, the series arcs, the activism, and show how it feeds back into a character who lands jokes without sacrificing the human being behind them today. Step outside the store, and you find the career that powers the 30-second character. Milana Vaintrub didn't wake up one morning as Lily. She arrived there after years of reps that taught her how to make a moment land fast and honest. The improv rooms came first, tiny theaters, sketch nights, upright citizens brigade classes, where you learn to listen harder than you talk, and to find the beat without steamrolling a partner. Then came digital, where she created web shorts that lived or died on timing, built an audience on wit rather than budgets, and absorbed the internet's rule: if the spark isn't there by second 10, start over. That training is Lily's connective tissue: responsiveness, economy, warmth. Television put weight behind those instincts. She stacked guest spots across comedies and dramas, then landed arcs that let her stretch. Fans of This Is Us met her as Sloane, a grounded, funny presence who could hold space for grief without flattening the room. Paul Feig's Other Space gave her a cult favorite sci-fi playground, proof she could bend genre while keeping the human core in view. Voice work expanded the range again. Animated projects for Marvel let her inhabit Squirrel Girl with buoyant confidence, while films like Werewolves Within handed her a lead that mixes sincerity and mischief. Put those credits beside Lily, and you see the through line: attention, empathy, timing. Add a producer's brain. During the pandemic, when sets shrank and schedules scattered, she moved behind the camera on some brand shoots, core writing beats, troubleshooting tech, and directing when needed. That's not a vanity credit. It's a survival skill learned in digital trenches where you wear 3 hats or the piece doesn't ship. The same habit runs through her independent work: make the room, make the thing, invite collaborators, iterate. It's why the commercials kept their charm when the world moved to living rooms and webcams. Authorship isn't only about getting the last word on a line, it's about building the conditions where a team can deliver without burning the human at the center. Activism deepened the spine. In 2016, after visiting refugee camps in Greece, Weintraub helped launch a grassroots initiative that funneled money and attention toward families displaced by war. She used what she had: reach, humor, organizing energy to translate empathy into logistics. That experience changed how she talks about visibility. It isn't theoretical to her, it's a responsibility with receipts. The brand work benefited from the same clarity: fame can be fuel, or it can be fire. If you treat a person as a product, the flames spread. If you treat a platform as a lever, you can move something that matters. That is the context for the boundaries she drew when the comment flood turned ugly. So when framing shifted and rumors tried to fill the gap, her answer wasn't a confession, it was a design choice explained in plain language. She and AT&T narrowed shots, used a counter or favored Head and Shoulders, because harassment had become constant and dehumanizing. The goal wasn't to hide, it was to work. Boundaries protect the craft. That explanation matched what longtime fans already suspected: the person inside the polo is an artist first, an artist protect the room so the work can happen. The confirmation here is agency. She shaped how Lily appears, she sometimes directed the ads, and she drew a line around what parts of her life remain hers. Zoom back in on the character with that knowledge, and the choices read differently. Lily's humor is lightly conspiratorial, but it never punches down. Her kindness isn't syrup. It's the quick recognition an improviser gives a scene partner so the bit can fly. Even the physical vocabulary, hands, shoulders, the blink before a punchline, feels crafted for efficiency and consent. You feel invited, not toyed with. Those are tiny choices with outsize effect, and they come from a performer who understands both the joy and the risk of attention. It's why the ads survive repetition. There's a human pulse under the pitch, and that pulse belongs to someone steering with intention. Outside the store, the pattern holds. She writes, she produces, she keeps voice roles alive, she makes time for projects that aren't mediated by a telecom logo, and she guards her private life without turning it into a tease. She has spoken about becoming a parent on her terms. She shares glimpses, not diaries. That restraint isn't coyness. It's a boundary that lets the work stay bright. If you suspected that Lily's evolution reflected a creator taking more control over her own time, image, and output, you read the signs correctly. The brand didn't unmask a secret, it listened to an author, and the character got better because the person stayed whole. That's the generous way to read this headline. Not as a gotcha, but as a moment to learn how modern campaigns should work. Hire talent, then give them authorship, shape frames that protect people. Back them publicly when the feed goes feral, and let the audience enjoy the joke without being deputized into someone else's boundary violations. The result is better creative and a healthier human being in the center of it. In the next section, we'll zoom out to the internet itself, how rumor factories exploit ambiguity, how to spot the tells, and how to keep your curiosity intact without feeding the very machine that tried to turn a working actor into a cliffhanger. Zoom out to the engine that keeps headlines, like stops denying finally confirms humming. The trick is ambiguity with urgency. The sentence hides the subject Lily instead of Milana, hides the noun what we suspected, and slaps on a present tense verb that makes yesterday feel like now. It's designed to be shared before it's checked. Aggregator channels borrow that phrasing because it travels across topics: a celebrity haircut, a contract renewal, a boundary, a birth. Everything becomes a reveal. When you click, the video often stretches 5 minutes of recycled material into 10, with slow battle, solemn music, and a narrator who never cites a document. The dopamine hit comes from the promise of certainty, not from evidence. The platform sees watch time and pushes the clip, completing the loop. Fabrication thrives in the gaps your brain fills automatically. A creator crops a timestamp, pairs an old red carpet, still with a new caption, and overlays a mournful cue to preload your feelings. Some use AI voices that mimic newsreaders, or face blends that suggest an exclusive interview. Others stitch posts out of order, so the sequence implies cause. With Lily, ambiguity helps the scam. The character and the person blur, so a framing change in an ad becomes evidence, and a boundary becomes denial. Viewers mean well, share before verifying, and repetition hardens suggestion into memory. None of this requires malice at scale. It requires tools and incentives. If a video pays on watch time, the fastest path to minutes is a cliffhanger that refuses to land on sourced facts. The incentives are blunt. Platforms reward watch time and comments. Channels chase those metrics with content that provokes without proving. One account invents a tease, 3 more paraphrase it, a dozen reaction videos cite the paraphrase. Soon your feed presents consensus where there is only copy. Silence becomes admission because the format expects a rebuttal. But healthy boundaries do not produce releases on demand. A performer owes you a performance, not an affidavit. A brand owes talent a workspace more than it owes strangers explanations for framing or wardrobe. When Milana explained her boundaries once, that was enough. Everything after is noise. If you want to starve the machine, route your attention differently, reward clarity, share sources, and resist the urge to retell a rumor in order to denounce it. The quickest way to test a claim is to imagine what a real confirmation would look like, and then look for it. If Milana announced news that changes the campaign, you'd see it on her verified channels, on AT&T's newsroom, and in a trade outlet that quotes a representative. There would be dates, quotes, and alignment across outlets that rarely agree on anything else. If the story hinges on personal details, expect language and consent. If it's a voiceover and stock clips, you're being sold a mood. Timestamp the source. Compare the calendar to the claim, ask whether the verbs describe facts or feelings. Admitted without a quote is suspicion. Confirmed without a document is theater. When those checks fail, close the tab and save your care for something real. For creators and brands, the remedy is structural. Bake consent into the workflow, moderate where harassment spikes, and keep the human at the center empowered to say, let's frame this differently. Transparency helps. A note in a caption about remote production or creative choices inoculates against wild theories. When ambiguity is unavoidable, preempt with receipts later, behind-the-scenes clips, credited roles, dated posts that show process, and treat generative tools with humility. AI can smooth logistics, it can flood feeds with convincing nonsense, label simulations, avoid voiceovers that posture as news. And remember that credibility is a ledger that pays out slowly and disappears quickly. The point is not perfection, it is stewardship. If the work keeps the person whole, audiences feel it and return. Because respect reads on camera as warmth. For audiences, careful can be a habit rather than a mood. Pause before sharing, ask what a real update would look like, and prefer named sources to vibes. If a post leans on cropped screenshots, strings and phrases like finally confirms, assume it's selling emotion, not facts. With Lily, remember two-track truth. A character belongs to a brand, the person belongs to herself. Framing changes reflect logistics and boundaries, not secret plots. Support looks like enjoying the joke, paying for projects she authors, reporting harassment on site, and letting the work be the statement. That keeps the room human. In the next section, we'll return to craft and future, how authorship might evolve. Lily, what campaigns can learn from this boundary? And where Milana's storytelling is likely to go next today. Let S talk about the future, because that's the confirmation that matters. Authorship has momentum. Lily as a character works because she feels like a person invited into a joke, not a mascot reciting copy. Expect that to continue, and to evolve. You'll likely see more modular spots that feel like mini-sketches, with beats written to play as one-offs on social and as connective tissue in longer brand stories. Framing will stay respectful by design without losing energy. Clever blocking, prop business, and dialogue will carry the humor instead of any focus on a body. That's not restraint for restraint's sake, it's a creative constraint that tends to produce sharper writing and warmer performances. The result is ads that watch like scenes and age better than punch-in punch-out slogans. For brands paying attention, the playbook is clear. Start consent. First, treat the performer as a creative partner with veto power over frames that affect dignity. Bake boundaries into briefs. Next, make comedy do the lifting. Give Lily and her scene partners specific games to play, status flips, misunderstandings, tiny heists, so jokes land on ideas, not angles. Third, design for remixability. Write beats that can be cut into 6 seconds for a pre-roll, 15 for vertical, and 30 for broadcast without turning the character into a catchphrase generator. Fourth, build transparency into distribution. Post-credited behind-the-scenes clips that show process list director and writer names, and timestamp shoots so rumor has less oxygen. Finally, set moderation to proactive, not reactive, and swear off attention that taxes the human at the center. Guardrails make art, not just safety memos. Practical version, brief moderators before a campaign drops. Empower them to hide and ban at scale the minute harassment spikes. Route serious abuse to a brand safety team trained for it. On set, publish a simple consent checklist, framing approved, wardrobe approved, alt lines cleared, edit rights acknowledged. In post, scrub captions for innuendo and avoid thumbnail crops that bait the wrong attention. When you swap spectacle for craft, other numbers rise: brand favorability, message recall, and long-term equity, while the curiosity clicks that never convert fade on their own. The accounting is moral and measurable at once. Now the question everyone asks Milana by proxy: where does her storytelling go next? The near-term path looks like more directing and producing, short-form pieces that keep the Lily universe nimble, plus independent projects that let her prove tone at length. Expect another lead or ensemble turn in smart genre, where humor and heart can share a frame. Voice roles will continue, animation offers range without the grind of travel, and audiences already hear her as a hero. A limited series would fit too, character-forward half-hour dramedy, with space for her writer's ear. Behind the camera, a grounded docu-comedy about modern attention would suit her instincts. Humane, funny, useful, the advocacy thread will stay central. Expect continued work on refugee support, digital well-being and creator safety, plus experiments that turn audience energy into practical help, funds, gear, mentorships. The same clarity she brought to boundaries will likely surface as tooling, community guidelines published like a social contract, and maybe even a small studio imprint that bakes consent into its brand. In a media moment crowded with synthetic faces and AI mimicry, authenticity becomes a strategy. Label simulations, watermark experiments, and keep a human signature on the work, credit rolls, creative notes, and how we made it. Posts that teach viewers to spot the difference between performance and bait. What does all of this confirm? That the smartest version of Lily from AT&T is really Milana's authorship at scale. A character sustained by consent, a campaign strengthened by respect, and an audience invited to enjoy charm without being deputized into someone else's boundary issues. The rumor headline wanted a secret. The truth offers a model. If more campaigns work this way, writer-performers with real authority, brands that treat people as more than placements, you'll feel it in the ads and see it in the culture. Safer rooms make funnier jokes. Guardrails make better roads. In the end, the confirmation you were promised is simply this: she owns her craft, she owns her boundaries, and the work is better for it. If you want to help, vote with attention, share the ads that make you smile without cruelty in the margins. Buy a ticket or a download when her independent projects drop. Report the comments that try to drag the room back to 2013. And when a channel pushes the next finally admits, cliffhanger, ask for a date, a quote, a document. If it can't produce all three, pass. Save your curiosity for the stories she tells on purpose. That's where the fun and the truth live right now. So here's the clean ending to a messy headline. Nothing explosive changed overnight. The thing Lily finally confirmed is the thing Milana Vaintrub has been practicing in plain sight: authorship and boundaries. She is the creative engine of a character millions know. She helped decide how that character is framed, and she will keep adjusting the presentation when safety, logistics, or story demand it. That's it. No gotcha, no scandal. Just a working artist choosing the conditions that let the work stay joyful and the human stay whole. Zoom out and the pattern reads like a modern survival guide for public people. Build something lovable, then defend the room where it's made. Treat fame as a tool, not a thermostat. Say yes to the jobs that buy you freedom for the projects you author. Say no when a format starts asking for pieces you won't give. When the audience asks a fair question, answer once, clearly. When the internet tries to turn your answer into an endless referendum on your body or your private life, route your energy back into the work and let the brand carry the moderation load it owes you. That's the model this story leaves behind for brands too. Hire talent because they can elevate your idea, then put them in charge of the parts that determine whether they can do it again tomorrow. Framing, wardrobe, edit approval on sensitive beats, community guardrails. Believe the person when she tells you what the comment fire feels like. Budget for safety like you budget for media. You'll keep your campaign charming longer, and you won't have to pretend you didn't see the cost when a human being is worn down by the feed. For audiences, the ask is simpler and, honestly, better for your own brain. Treat the character like a story, and the person like a neighbor. If you like the work, reward it with attention that isn't cruel in the margins. If a rumor waves you over with finally confirms, ask for a date, a quote, a document. If none appear, close the tab and go find a piece she made on purpose. The more we practice that, the less oxygen there is for accounts that mine ambiguity for outrage and harvest your time without giving you anything you can trust later. Seen that way, the whole Lily stops denying cycle looks small next to the actual arc. A refugee kid made a life in a new country, learned to make rooms laugh, turned a national ad gig into a character with wit and heart, stood up for herself when the crowd got ugly, and kept building. Voice roles, series arcs, leads, scripts, causes. She became a parent, and drew lines so she could be present there too. She asked strangers for decency in public, and with her team, redesigned the frame so the joke could survive. If you suspected all along that the smile in the store belonged to a writer-producer with a plan, you were right. And where does that leave the headline we started with, exposed for what it is, a lure that withers in daylight? The confirmation that actually matters arrived a while ago and keeps arriving. Every time you see Lily handled with care, and every time you see Milana using that platform to push new stories into the world, confirmation looks like continued work done on her terms. It looks like ads that feel kinder and funnier because consent is part of the brief. It looks like a career expanding in directions rumor can't choreograph. If you need a final takeaway to carry into your feed tonight, make it this: boundaries are not a plot twist, they are a craft choice. When performers draw them, the work gets better and the rooms get safer. When brands respect them, audiences feel the respect in return. When viewers honor them, the internet gets a little less feral. That's not a secret revealed. That's a culture you can help build in small daily ways, even if it's just scrolling past a baited caption and saving your clicks for the projects that add something to your day. Milana Vaintrub doesn't owe the rumor mill a confession. She owes herself a life, her collaborators a steady partner, and her audience a performance that hasn't been taxed by 1,000 unnecessary battles. She's been delivering that balance in public for years, which is why the character endures and the person remains intact. So tell the truer story. When someone asks what Lily finally admitted, she confirmed the obvious, that she's the author here. And the obvious is more powerful than any tease. It keeps the door closed on nonsense and open.